Looking back, my Siege Spinister review wasn't really the best thing I've ever made. It's kind of the worst example of being a contrarian, just because everyone and their mothers were singing that figure's praises. I mean, yeah, Spinister is very good, but he can't be that good, right? Right? Welcome to Kit Reviews. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Select's Deluxe Class ROTORSTORM. This heroic Autobot was released in 2020 as part of the Earthrise segment of Generation Selects, and is a redeco and retool of Transformers Siege Deluxe Class Spinister. Hailing from the blinding kaleidoscope that was the early 1990s, ROTORSTORM transforms into a stealth helicopter that seems to have completely forgotten what that word even means, much less how to spell it. Colored a bright baby blue and pink, he looks fit to crash every gender reveal party within a 500-mile radius, and, as a wrecker, he probably has the ordnance to pull it off too. In my Spinister review, I mentioned that this helicopter's proportions are all kinds of fucked up, but after taking a second look, there really isn't anything to complain about in that regard, except perhaps the winglets. Given that they're the robot feet, I'd rather call it a genius use of robot mode integration. The cockpit is coated in a sparkling, steely shine, while the windows are a juicy, translucent pink that really works a lot better than Spinister's blue on blue. Speaking of cockpits, there is one issue I've had since the beginning that has not gone anywhere in the time elapsed. From most angles except head-on and top-down, ROTORSTORM's second fake cockpit is clearly visible, with no pretense or attempt at disguise. Some people have tried to justify this as a ball turret. For starters, this looks nothing like a ball turret, as pedantic as I may sound right now, because a ball turret's primary function is to be able to fire in a 360-degree radius. A good example of a transformer with a ball turret is any version of the Energon Warthog mold. This, however, is just a flimsy justification for one of the key examples of faux parts we've seen in recent years. It doesn't even have its own gun. Like I mentioned in my Spinister review, I would have preferred if the two legs were asymmetrically molded so that this one ended up without windows. Out of the entire deluxe range of the Siege line, Spinister was by far the most complex. Compared to a fairly uninspired transformation such as Tiger Tracks, ROTORSTORM's comes as a true delight with scores of locking tabs and slots, and enough swivels to make a spinning top dizzy. I like how the feet swivel around in completely different ways. It reminds me somewhat of Revenge of the Fallen Ransack in an esoteric sort of way. One of the triumphs of this mold is the addition of soft locks to keep the rotor blades in place. On Spinister, you're supposed to fold them upwards, but on ROTORSTORM, I like to keep them straight. You know, if this mold were ever redecoed as Tomahawk, it'd be just as easy to fold the rotors down like on his original toy. ROTORSTORM features all of the design staples I love to see in a transforming robot. Lanky proportions? Check. Bell-bottom boots? Check. Arctic blue? Check. That last point is negotiable, but Arctic blue is one of my favorite colors, and ROTORSTORM's is impressively icy, especially when paired with his suggestive navy and pale periwinkle. The pink fists and rotors pop all the more because of this otherwise concise color scheme. Strangely, it seems as if ROTORSTORM has far more paint than his Siege sibling, with navy stripes on his shoulders and far more silver and pink on the chest. That chest layout on ROTORSTORM, mind you, is based on the original's cockpit chest. The shins get bifurcated on ROTORSTORM, while Spinisters suffice with a flat blue fill. I question how good of an idea it was at the time to put the faction symbols right on top of these steep ridges on the shoulders, but in practice, I don't think it works. Originally, stock photography had ROTORSTORM sporting a straight repaint of Spinister's crowned helmet, but this was changed before release to something that more closely resembles ROTORSTORM's appearance in Last Stand of the Wreckers. I love when we get retooled heads on otherwise identical repaints. It's the thing that does the most to change a bot's identity. And, I might add, those sunglasses are pretty slick. ROTORSTORM's arsenal is unchanged from that of Spinister's. Just two double-barreled guns, this time with no overt or covert Target Master subtext to speak of. I know it has to do with which parts are connected to other parts on the sprue, but I really wish there could have been a way to get both of these guns in the same color. Even so, the yellow paint used on all four barrels is slightly too thin, coming off greener than it should. Oh, and you can do the whole combined weapons thing if that tickles your fancy. See, I thought I'd do something a little different for today's Articulation segment just because I'm kind of running out of ideas for how to make them good, so I put ROTORSTORM here into a really good pose that you'll see more of later, and this is just to show how really fluid and dynamic he looks from pretty much every angle, and that's just because of how great his joints are. Taking him off of his butt plug for a second, you can see that ROTORSTORM has a ball-jointed head that rotates 360 degrees should you so choose, that is also on a hinged platform that allows him to crane his neck over his chest, and allows him to look up a little. The ball joint's doing most of the work here. His shoulders rotate 360 degrees on a simple swivel joint, and they rotate outwards on a hinge more than 180 degrees, which is extremely nice. The biceps swivel, the elbows bend double jointedly, nearly a 180 degree curl because of transformation, and if we take off this gun, I can show you that his wrists do indeed swivel all the way around. His waist rotates 260 degrees, mostly due to transformation, but, you know, they build waist swivels into every Transformer nowadays. The hips move forward and backward, and they can go extremely far, especially if you get this outward motion that goes extremely far. You can just keep going with his legs. You can push them all the way around, though some sculpting back here on the ass gets caught up if you try to do that, as I have just learned. And like I showed you, the hips spread very nicely. The thighs swivel 360 degrees, and the knees bend slightly more than 90 degrees. And that is very nice. It really helped with that sort of Spider-Man-esque pose I put him into before I started this. The ankles are slightly different from each other in terms of transformation, but they both are able to point fully, and they can each perform an extremely deep pivot. So you can get him into some really wide-legged stances. So if you can pardon the extremely dated nature of this, I'm just gonna make him dab. You know, with the benefit of hindsight, I think the Siege Spinister mold has aged a lot better than most of its contemporaries, partially due to the fact that many of them got updates a year later. Still, despite one major flaw that I'm too proud and pedantic to let go of, ROTORSTORM is a pretty awesome figure. Better than Spinister, I dare say. As much as I like Spinister's garish colors, ROTORSTORM's own blues and silvers just work a lot better for me, and he has a lot more paint than his predecessor to boot. The new head sculpt is also a nice bonus. Fortunately, I had the awareness last time to give Spinister a high rank, and even though I think ROTORSTORM is better, it's only marginal. So he still safely gets the rank of astounding. If you liked this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews in the comments. When we return, we'll be taking a look at something that isn't even a Transformer for once. This has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.